Hi, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Megan,
I'm Selena.
and this is One Hen, Two Ducks.
A grown-up theater kids podcast.
All right, today's episode is a review of Beetlejuice the Musical.
Beetlejuice the Musical. You know, the whole being dead thing.
Beetlejuice! Music and lyrics written by Eddie Perfect, book by Scott Brown and Anthony King, based on the movie and the cartoon series of the same name.
Yes. Yes, me, Megan, and our producer, Kristen, had the pleasure of watching it together, and we have thoughts, takeaways. Yes.
I was very lucky to have seen it in New York City during previews. It was like the week before it opened, so I got to see the original cast. So it was freaking great. And I'm interested to know your thoughts because we didn't really talk about it much afterwards, and I know how I feel about it.
Yes. So the performance that we saw actually had the Understudy cast, which they understudied for Beetlejuice and Lydia. So that's the version that I'm coming into perspective with. We did get to view a couple of previews, for me at least. I know Megan got to see the original cast, but for me at least, I got to see a couple of previews of the original actor, but from my perspective of the whole play, it was from the Understudy's cast. Understudy's perspective, and I actually thought he did a fantastic. I never knew that he was the Understudy until you said something, and his name is Will Bloom.
Yay, Will
was
Bloom.
Amazing. He bloomed into this position. He just bloomed. He's such a... I just love his name because that's what I felt from him. Is that he was this little bud coming into this musical as the understudy. And he bloomed and he just shined and he stretched his petals of his musical abilities. And it was amazing.
You're so silly.
Later.
Yeah, so the original guy's Alex Brightman. And he played the role on Broadway until the shutdown. So the whole thing behind Beetlejuice was they were performing at the Winter Garden Theater in New York City, and all of a sudden it came out that the revival of Music Man was going to push Beetlejuice out of the Winter Garden Theater and do the revival there. But then all of a sudden, like, that kind of made people that really like Beetlejuice the Musical really upset because Beetlejuice the Musical had only been on Broadway for, I think, a year, maybe at that point, and they were doing really well. So they're like, why would you push out a successful show to bring in just bring in Music Man? No offense, Music Man, but why would you do that? So then in a kind of sea of protest, all these Beetlejuice fans started buying up the tickets like crazy and selling out every show. So it was almost like they had to keep kind of pushing back the Music Man date because it was like, why would you say no to money, honey?
Right.
And Alex Brightman was like, I'm sticking with you to the end, baby. So a couple times, obviously, you do this role, you do this show as long as he has done it, which he's been a part of the show at least since 2018, probably since 2017, 2016, in terms of like workshops and stuff. So to do a role that long, it just gets a little tiring. Every now and then you do have to have your understudy on. But Understudy, like you said, was fantastic. Usually they are. Usually they're always amazing.
I wouldn't have even known. He did such a fantastic job. He was hilarious. I was thoroughly entertained.
It's nice to see an actor like if someone are, like, it's hard, right? It's hard to go on as an understudy to someone who just originated the role, and try to still kind of be yourself in a way and be honest with
Right.
who you are and not mimic them. So I think he did an excellent job with kind of being true to his own version of Beetlejuice, and but still keeping the integrity and the hilariousness of the role.
I completely concur. I loved, because when we watched a couple of the original actors' pieces and bits, it was interesting because, like, I could still see the understudies, his parts too, and it was cool because that told me, okay, he really did take this for himself, and it didn't take away from the role.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It showed that no matter what the role is, that a great actor can still make it their own. And I know as shows go into touring and as shows go into even whenever they're released for public consumption, sometimes we can get stuck into that, especially when they're well known, stuck into that, well, I have to do it like this actor. And as it's been seen, because as we talked about before in our podcast about how, the beauty of remaking Shakespeare is that we never knew the original people, so we can't have anything to
Right.
really compare it to. While it's harder as shows get more, like, for example, imagine when Hamilton does, if ever it opens itself up to public consumption, it would be very difficult for someone to be like, oh man, I'm playing Burr. How can I not be like Leslie? Not be, or I'm being Thomas Jefferson um and Lafayette. How can I not David? Not David, it would be almost like difficult because it's so well known and so well seen. So for me to take, like you said, an original piece and make it your own and still have it just be just as good, I thought it was brilliant.
And you run into that issue as, like, for the audience who wants to see that person play that role, right? And then they get upset, not that they show you, I'm sure, but that they kind of get upset of, like, oh, we're not going to see that person. You know what I mean? But then they're like, the understudy comes on and they're incredible. You know what I mean?
It's true.
They give you just an awesome experience. And
It's
it just
true.
goes to show you, like, look at this person who probably plays this role a handful of times in the course of a couple months, and they can still pick it up like that. I know they have,
Right.
like, an understudy rehearsal before they go on and stuff, but still, like,
Right.
the people that are swings and that are understudies are some of the most incredible human beings in this world, because they know every part, and like, where they know exactly where everyone stands. They know all the choreography for this part, this part, this part. If I'm taking over this track, I have to stand on this stage and all my movements this way. Whereas if I go, I'm going to stand over here and do all the movements to the back. Like, it's just unreal.
It is unreal.
Shout
And
out to all the swings and the understudies.
yeah, it really, and talk about humility. Talk about, like, having to learn all those parts, do all the work that the main character does, but you only get to perform once in a while. Like, I mean, talk about still being grateful, still being, in it and invested, and still giving your 100%, even though you may never get seen. I mean, it's really honorable. It really, really is. And so kudos to you, good sir.
Kudos.
And ma'am.
And ma'am. So Beetlejuice the movie and the animated series, Beetlejuice the movie, Tim Burton, kind of dark, kind of adult. Beetlejuice is kind of more framed as, like, a villain, sort of. It's got some iconic characters and iconic moments. And obviously the look of the movie is very iconic because it's Tim Burton. And then you have the animated series where they make Beetlejuice, the same kind of grotesque, silly ghoul, who's there for, like, some hijinks, but he's sort of Lydia's best friend.
Right.
And I think in the musical, they kind of did a good job of mashing the two up.
Yeah, marrying the two.
Beetlejuice isn't necessarily a villain, but he's not the good guy either. But you still root for him, and you don't want to see him, like, get defeated in the end. You know what I mean? Like, he leaves at the end of his own accord. You know what I mean? Like, he wants to... And I don't know. There's still that nice kind of, like, playfulness, friendship that Lydia and Beetlejuice have in the musical. That
Agreed.
I feel like they did a good job fleshing out. And
Agreed.
That was one thing that I was really happy to see. I'm not much of like a cult classic follower. Like I don't get so deep into these things, but I would hope that the way they designed it and the way they honored kind of both storylines, that those people that do like want to see exactly like the same thing are still happy with it. What do you think?
I think that it's possible because, like you said, I one thing that I can't stand in just storytelling in general is one level or one dimension characters where they're the villain and they're only the villain and there's no layering there. There's no depth to those characters, or they're only the good person and there's no like naughtiness about them. I can't stand that. I loved that, like you said, how they married these two Beetlejuices together for me to make a complete Beetlejuice. I think the other two almost like lost a little bit of him because they went a little bit on the caricature-y types of him, but I think the musical did a great job of humanizing, even though he's dead, humanizing Beetlejuice because, like you said, you felt compassion for him, even though he's not necessarily the good guy, but he's not necessarily, you understood his reasoning. And I loved these very, very deep, serious moments that he kind of let you in, but then still was Beetlejuice. Like, oh yeah, my mother was very abusive and she hated me. But anyway, like, and then and you're like,
yeah, and he'd get all sad. Like, I just want someone to see me.
I just
see
yes,
me like I really am, and then
yes. And then he moved up, or exactly, or how he was so desperate to just not be alone. And I think that specific part of him is what translates well to the audience. Because I think every one of us has that in us. There's a part of us that just really, even those who say they like to be alone, I really believe even them, they like to have at least one person. Because that's just human nature. We are not built to be single, like alone. I'm not single because single ladies, single men. But I'm talking about like by yourself in life, not having anybody, not even a dog, a cat, a bird, nothing.
A dog,
somebody, something. Like we're just not meant to do that. So I loved that was his goal. And out of that goal, I think we all sympathized of that villain where goal messes with the line of becoming bad. And I think we all are there, where we're like, we want something so bad that, okay, how far are we going to go with it?
How far are we going to go? Beetlejuice is a little bit of like that chaos magic energy. So he'll go pretty far, but
he'll go pretty far. He's like, I'm going to not be alone. I will not, and he crosses that line, but then he does a great job of, and Lydia, that character's arcs and stuff I love too. I love that she was brooding. Yes. But then brooding for a true purpose, and I think that they did a great job of not making her too character-y too, because she has a very difficult written part in that she is kind of one note. She's kind of like what we talked about in the prom.
Teenager.
Yes, like she's that type of person that they only gave. Okay, this is the girl who lost her mom, and there was not much left there. So she had the difficult task of building that into more, okay. I'm more than just a girl who just lost her mom. Who am I? Right. What do I want? And I thought she did a fantastic job. And to think she's so young, Megan, tell the people how old this chick is.
She started playing this role when she was, I think, 15, 16. So it came to Broadway when she was about 17 or 18. The brilliant Sophia Ann Caruso, huge career ahead of her, I'm sure. And then so this brings up a point that you made. A little bit of a spoiler alert if you haven't seen Beetlejuice the Musical. In order to flesh out a storyline, make it make sense for the stage, they show you, they begin the show at a funeral, and it's Lydia's mom's funeral. And so her kind of whole motivation throughout the show is, she wants her dad to understand that she's hurting. She feels like her dad is kind of moving on really quickly and just wants to return to normal and doesn't want to talk about the fact that her mom just died. And so she's got this rebellious quality to her, but then, she's befriending ghosts and she wants to help them out. She doesn't want to live in the suburbs. She wants to go back to the city and back to her house where she was with her mom. And that then transforms into wanting to then go to the netherworld and find her mom. And what was so powerful for me is I walked into this musical thinking I was going to have a fun, lighthearted evening out about town and just laugh at this musical because it was so funny. But then you have this very serious moment between Lydia and her father in the netherworld where she confronts him and she's like, you never talk about her. You don't talk about her. And he breaks down and he finally says, because it hurts me.
Hurts too much.
And to see that honest, like, interaction between a father and a daughter about a passing of a family member, like, I mean, I'm almost tearing up right now thinking about it because I remember seeing that on stage and just like, whoa, it's like all of a sudden you're like watching something really fun and then all of a sudden it punches you in the face and you're like, this has a huge message.
Yeah.
You know, and like they constantly talk about like, say Beetlejuice's name, say the name, right? But I think ultimately, like she talks to her dad about why won't you even say her name in the house? Because name gives something power. When you name something, it gives it power.
You know, when you said that, it's very true. Mentioning name, it has power, and it almost even reminded me. I know I'm going to go over here. Just follow me, people. Come on the journey with me in my brain. But it almost reminded me of Coco, because that was their whole thing too, of keeping someone alive. And for Beetlejuice, it was keeping that, saying her name kept her alive, because in that Lydia even says, "I don't want to forget her." And it's the same thing with Coco but they use pictures, but the same thing applied of there comes a point when if you don't share the story, if you don't as the living person, keep them alive the way you can, then they are really dead. They are really gone. They cease to exist. And
what a good point. That's such a good point. Ooh.
Oh, it's so deep. It's so
when you said that, I was like, you're so right. And I forgot about that moment too, where she tells her dad, like, I don't want to forget her. Oh my, it's literally a 10-minute scene.
Yes.
Out of the entire 2-hour musical. And it's like, it's given me the chilly chills. And it
has weight, man. It has weight. And you're right. The rest of it is so much fun. So, I mean, they're doing the banana song. They're doing they're doing all these crazy, song moments.
The banana song.
I can only think of the banana song.
No, it's the banana song though. It is, but it's just so funny when you say it like that.
And then so they're doing all these fun, and then Beetlejuice come, and even the understudy. I love the understudies part because what he did, because he always added just little extras, and I think that was him just going, "This is my moment. Who knows when I'm going to come back on stage? I'm going to add the most improv pieces that I can." And but he was the little sidelines and the little crack jokes that he would put in most random places. It was just so funny. And then, like you said, then there's these moments where it's like, oh, it gets really, really deep. And I really appreciated it. I thought that the musical did exactly what theater does, which is goes to the artistry, back to the depth of something. Movies can only do so much. And movies are very geared towards market. And I thought that this was a beautiful nod to audience and to people and to humanity of taking this very fun, very lively, but there's more and there's depth here that we can explore. And
it wasn't like we kind of talked, I think, a little bit about with Prom, but it wasn't as like beat you over the head with the message.
Yes!
Yeah, right?
Yes!
Like it was a very subtle message that all of a sudden it's like you get it at the end. They're not beating you over the head with it. You know what I mean? It was something that was so organic and real, and it was a great piece of writing. You know what I mean?
I agree.
It was perfect.
I agree. Like they didn't stick to. The Prom had a very bad had an issue with just putting in problems, but then not letting them see like they tried, in the Prom, like with having that moment. Oh yeah, her mom left her. And then it was just gone. Like but there was no. First of all, we didn't even hear it from the main character herself, because that would have already added so much more depth if it didn't come from the grandma and actually the girl talking about her mother. leaving.
Well,
And
remember, I think that was something added for the movie that wasn't in the
that's right.
Broadway show.
And that's why it felt like it just a throw in. And I
Yeah.
hated that. While this one was definitely not a throw in. These were thought out, perfectly placed too moments where, because and oh my gosh, as a writer, I don't even know how hard that would have been to be like, okay, we need to go into a deeper moment here, but how do we have all this fun comedy and put that in there without making it feel like a gimmick or a throwaway or something that doesn't put on that weight. So they had to find the moments, they had to find the right time, that like it had to be perfect for it to work, and it works. I say it works.
And so keeping along the lines of this show, that I know we didn't get, I mean, with what we watched, we weren't able to see many of the technical elements, but the technical elements were amazing. You have these incredible light cues. Like there's this moment where it looks like everything sucks into a door, and the way they're able to make it look so real, it's incredible. Now, Tim Burton had nothing to do with this musical or the design of it, but they were able to take things and be inspired by his designs and create things that looked very much like a Burton-esque set, which then helped kind of make you feel a little bit more nostalgic for like the movie and stuff like that.
That is true.
Yeah, but you have these great costumes. You have all this great play with Beetlejuice. Like he's doing some magic tricks. He's doing, he's getting stuff from the pit or from trap doors. He's, pulling out extra limbs from behind the set. You know what I mean?
Microphones are popping up, ukuleles.
There's a giant snake. You know what I mean? Like there's some really cool, like magical elements to this. There's levitation. And there's still like, how do they even do it, right? Because you don't see a machine, you don't see
right. They're very good at hiding it.
They're really good at hiding it.
Very good. I kept staring. I was like, where did they get where's the lever? Where's the lever? But you know what I also loved?
I still don't know.
I still don't know either. But what I also loved is the transitions. They were seamless, and it wasn't. And usually when there's a seamless transition, it's pretty easy. That's why you get a fairly simple set, and then you simply and easily transition to another very simple set. But did not do that. They had very complicated, very big sets, and they would go straight into a completely different one.
Yeah.
And I was like the fact that the house changed 3 times.
Yeah.
And it was all, and I'm like, how did we go from a fixer-upper to a very high renovation to this like Beetlejuice lair?
Yep.
Like that. I'm like, oh my God. And they would come from these also big, going from the netherworld to, which was a huge change to and I'm like, how are they doing this so seamlessly?
Yeah.
In like matters of seconds.
You're going from like the main area of the house to then all of a sudden you're in the attic. Then all of a sudden you're in the bedroom. Then all of a sudden you're on the roof of the house. Like it's like seconds.
Seconds.
Like they make all this in a second, and and a couple of times, which was so well done. It's like, okay, we do have this really long transition here. How are we going to fill it? That's not just music. That doesn't keep like that. People like they have one really long transition, and they figured out, okay, towards the end of this transition, cue Beetlejuice, and he's just going to start talking until the lights come up. He's just going to
He's so entertaining.
He's just going to improv and tell them a story, and the lights will come up, and that'll be the cue for him to be like, and wrap it up. And he's like, and that's the time I made guacamole with Katharine Hepburn.
I love it. And it works so well because Beetlejuice is such a character. Like, you don't even think that that's what they're doing. You don't even think that they're just trying to fill the space or distracting. You don't even feel that because you just think this is just Beetlejuice, and you're so invested into him by that moment that you're just eating up everything he says. So you're not even noticing what's happening around him. You don't even care that he's just randomly talking in this moment. You don't care because you're like, it's just more Beetlejuice, and he's just so much fun, and I love him. And and it's wonderful.
He's so great. I almost did the thing. He was like, sequel, right? Because at the end he says like sequel, and it's like, oh yeah. Oh, he's so funny.
He's so funny.
I mean, and what a fun, great character. And usually, we talked about this in a previous episode about movies that turn into musicals. And sometimes they're not the greatest.
No,
But
they are
Beetlejuice
not.
was definitely one of them, I think.
Yes.
It was one of the ones that worked because they were able to take the elements that worked and bring them in. And it wasn't Alex Brightman portraying Michael Keaton as
Right.
Beetlejuice.
Right.
It was Alex Brightman's take on Beetlejuice.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, which still had like homages to Michael Keaton. So if you watch like any of Alex Brightman's stuff, he kind of does this growly thing with his voice. And that's what Michael Keaton is kind of doing, like, hey, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't even do it. He does it so well.
Right.
And then you have like some of the makeup, and obviously the striped suit's the same, but like it's still a different energy.
Exactly.
And it works. And at first you're like, I don't know if I'm going to like this, right? But then it works.
That was me. That was 100% me. And I will say, as an originalist, because I am an originalist, it's very hard for me to do anything outside of being original. As an originalist, I actually prefer the musical over both the cartoon and the movie now. Because of the depth that we talked about, because of all these mirroring together. And I thought this was a perfect marriage. They just had the best baby in the world. This baby is far greater than the parents. I think that it is a beautiful bouncing baby Beetlejuice. And I thought it was much better. I thought it heightened, not to take away from for all you other originalists out there that are yelling at me right now, not to take away from the movie and the show. I'm just saying that for me, the musical, yes, they were their own special thing.
Their own special thing.
Right. But I think the musical
will ever be Michael Keaton in Beetlejuice with Michael Keaton. Ever. So why even try?
Ever. Don't ever, just don't. But I thought this one just elevated it. I think it just added an extra level. I think, like I said, it just got new DNA. It got a more boosted DNA, and the DNA's still there. His daddy's still the original.
Still there.
But it's just now a beautiful baby. Pretty baby. Just another pretty baby. I love it.
Hopefully post COVID life, on at least there will be a tour, I'm sure, of I'm sure there'll be a tour of Beetlejuice.
Oh, and
I mean, hopefully a little baby Broadway return. They didn't deserve to go out like that. You know what I mean?
No, they didn't. They didn't. And then I also real quick too wanted to talk about the score.
Oh yeah.
Because again, I'm the type of person that likes to watch it first before. Because I heard a couple of the songs, and I was like, actually, I did hear the whole being dead thing and I remember I was cleaning, and I just had Alexa playing show tunes, and she just popped it up there randomly. I think it was like real random, like after Carousel. Like it was like this beautiful sweeping ballad, and then it's all being dead thing. I'm like.
Don't you love that stuff? Don't you love when you're listening to just like a random show tune pile, and it's like Annie, get your gun, or something like super like upbeat, like anything you can do, I can do, and then it's like the act one finale of Ragtime, and it's like all of a sudden you hear Cole House go, no.
Yes. Exactly, and that's how I was feeling. I was in a mode, so I'm cleaning, and of course I had just listened to they had played a 6 song, so I was all excited about that. 6. Yeah. So I was all excited about that, but because I was like, yeah, man, that's my jam. And then they went into this sweeping ballad. I think it was like it was an old school musical.
Yeah.
And then it came into that one, and but then came the whole being dead thing, and I remember. It caught my attention. So I was like, what is this song? And I didn't know, and I could just assume by the lyrics, I was like, is this Beetlejuice? I was like, what is this? So I'm like, he's talking about this has to be Beetlejuice. And for me, it was one of the very few moments where I was immediately drawn to the music before seeing it. Because I didn't hear the rest of the songs, but that one in particular, I could see it without seeing it, and that's why it's hard for me to listen to a soundtrack or to a musical without seeing it, because it's hard for me to see what they're doing, see the context of the story, see what's going on, like especially if you have one that's unconventional like 6 or like Hamilton. Like it was very hard for me to go like, okay, what am I seeing without seeing it? You know, so that one though, I was like, I don't even know the set. I don't know what he looks like. I don't know what's going on. I don't know the choreography. but I could still see in my imagination that this is fun. And that this is like, I could just feel it. I just felt it. I just felt it. So the score was on. I loved it.
It was great. They were able to incorporate the original Danny Elfman theme a little bit, and like in the whole Being Dead thing, and then in other parts, like it's like that da 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 da, and then they cut it off at that. But it still gives you that like, yep, this is it.
Yes,
this is that.
And I love too whenever they started it with the ballad, of Lydia's song, and then he even jumps in there going, "A ballad at the already in the beginning," and I was like, "That's perfect," because that was my exact thought. Was why is it starting like this?
This is what we're doing.
This is interesting, and that's why I love that they already anticipated that thought and went and made fun of it. And I thought that was a brilliant, brilliant thing to do, and go right into the more upbeat song that we expected for an opener. So I love that. I loved the play with different known songs, with different unknown songs. I loved Lydia's just gut-wrenching, here's my soul, bear it with me songs, Yeah,
like like that's the thing is when you as a composer kind of start working with people and like again the writing process goes through many different stages. So as a composer writing a musical, your work goes through many different stages, and sometimes someone comes in, sings a song, and then you just start realizing you're writing for that voice. And I think I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine that Eddie Perfect started listening to Sophia, started writing things that would obviously be well for her character, but then wrote things in kind of a punk pop way that really fit her voice, where she's slipping in and out of her pocket so easily.
Yes.
And just like bringing this amazing rock quality to her songs, but that's also really like angsty.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
It's great, and it's exactly what. Sorry, we're putting a lot of plugs in this episode. Sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry.
It's the plug episode.
But it is the plug episode. But that it's exactly what Bridgerton, of what they're working with, is missing. Bridgerton. But it's exactly what they're missing, and what we talked about with that. Because right now, as they're developing the process, we were talking about in that episode how all the songs sound alike. It's very there's no variety, there's no growth, there's no what they need to be paying attention to musicals like this, to where first of all there's tons of variety. You got the punk thing, which I love, because Hamilton took the hip hop thing. Now we got Beetlejuice taking the punk thing, but it's not so, or Six taking the pop thing, but all of them do it in a way that it's not boring, and it's not the same. Because even with Six, they added the ballad, and they added some hip hop, and then some more poppy pop, of Britney, and then they added all kinds of bluesy, exactly. And the same thing with Hamilton. It wasn't they had trap in a sense, kind of rap. They had very old school rap, and then they had a very, what is it called, speedy rap that Daveed Diggs is perfect in. He's and a ballad or two, so they did that. And then this one too does the same thing. We've got rock, we've got punk, we've got ballads, we've got
classic Broadway, that's or not like classic contemporary Broadway,
contemporary
when, the Maitlands are singing, it's a very kind of classic.
This is a musical. Yep. Perfect. Yeah. And that's the things that Bridgerton, for example, were missing, and that they need to pay attention to, because this is what makes, I think this is what's becoming the modern, or the contemporary, whichever one is closest, musical. Because this variety building, because it wasn't like that before. A lot of it was, they had a little bit of variety in a lot of the other classics, but I think this is becoming a thing now, where you are sticking to a certain genre, but in that genre you are taking, or under that umbrella, you're taking all the little details of okay, yes, we're under the umbrella of hip hop, but okay, trap, old school, da-da-da of that, so that in variety, and that new variety type, exactly, the new variety type is the new way. And so if you're gonna write a musical, people, write it with variety.
Write it with variety. Everyone, thank you so much for hanging out with us again for another One and Two Ducks. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you do, like the podcast, give us some stars, send it to your friends.
And don't forget, peeps, to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss an episode. Drop in into the premieres, if you are able to. We always have a premiere episode Tuesdays at 10. So we're always here to comment with you, talk about the episode live in that moment. So that's what the premieres do uniquely. So definitely, if you can make a premiere, do so. Also, we have a Patreon.
We have a Patreon /OneHen, where you can go get some bonus content if you become a patron. You can listen to extra fun things from our Art Unmasked guests. You can get some really cool merchandise. So please become a patron if you like what we're doing. Just throw us $5. It helps.
Throw it to us. Yes.
And thank you so much to the cast of Beetlejuice. You guys are awesome. We enjoyed your show very much, and we can't wait when theater's a thing again and we can watch it in the reel again.
We can go to the theater.
Until then, we'll just be singing with the soundtrack while we wash dishes and stuff.
The whole being dead thing.
Whole being dead thing.
It's my new catchphrase.
That's it. And it's just the whole being dead thing.
The whole being dead thing. And now this episode is going to go ahead and go to sleep.
Good
so
night.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.